Welcome back, Hot Nerd family, to another electrifying episode of the Hot Nerd Network. I'm your host, Hot Nerd D, and today we're going to dive deep into Power Book 4, Force, Season 2, Episode 3. And today we have our lovely guest, Hot Nerd Viv, who is going to share all of her beautiful insights. But before we get started, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. But yes, let's get to it. So, first, let's start off with our quick episode recap. So, here is currently what is happening. So, last episode ended with Little K avenging Chewie's death, taking shots at Tommy, but he ended up missing and hitting a little girl in the crossfire. So then that leads to the clearance of the feds assembling a task force aimed taking out CBI and Jenard having to find Little K for taking a shot at Tommy when he explicitly told him not to last episode. Tommy and Diamond now expanded their business into the prison system using a guard Diamond was previously in prison with, so someone he had a previous relationship with. Of course, Tommy's vendetta for Liliana's killer has not stopped and continued within this episode with him first questioning Walter, who ends up slipping up and then pushes him in to lean into Claudia's direction for who is responsible. So we're going to continue seeing how that unravels. And then towards the end of the episode, we do see Jenard start to unravel, or not even just a little bit, but completely unravel, killing little K under the influence of his own drugs, and then even attempts to seek more. And then while Victor's plan to destroy his father is currently in motion, by both damaging his relationship with Dublin and ruining a deal to make money. So, and it was also nice in this episode to see like a different side of Kate. She's not only going to AA, trying to, clean herself up, but she's also, trying to make amends with her children. So that'll be interesting to see also, too, how that plays out. But yes, there were a lot of moving parts this episode. So I definitely want to start off with what were your favorite moments or what moments stood out to you?
Okay. So for me, at the beginning, what stood out was how committed Little K was to getting vengeance for what was the other guy's name? His death, for Chewie's death.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of threw me because in the first episode, they were on like opposite sides of CBI, and they were like, "Can we curse on here?"
Yeah.
Yeah, they were up like, "Fuck them niggas, fuck them CBI niggas." Like, okay, what do you mean? Like, y'all was enemies 2 episodes ago. Now all of a sudden, like, you need to avenge his death. That threw me.
Mm.
And then also like, I don't know, I like the character of Lil K's grandmother, but like, girl, if you care about him, get him off the streets. Like, what do
Mm.
you mean you gonna shoot Jenard too? What do you mean? I'm talking to the police. Y'all don't protect little black boys. Okay, grandma, come on now.
Mm. Mm.
Like, and then for me, probably the most shocking part of the episode was how much of a mess Jenard is. Like, I love the trajectory of his downfall throughout these first 3 episodes. And then the episode ending with him asking for heroin was just like, oh my god, it's about to get so hectic. I'm worried.
I know.
Mhm.
Oh, that part is truly, truly what got me because it's like, wow. We started off somewhat being a fan of Jenard, like him and Diamond, like from last season, teaming up. But then we started
Mhm.
seeing the friction there in terms of jealousy, in terms of control, inviting Tommy in, being a an equal partner when in his eyes, I believe like that was a position that was should only have been held for him. And so yeah, seeing his downfall, it just has been so sad. And to me, like, it just, especially because last episode, when he was talking to Diamond, like, all in all, he's like, I just wanted you to love me. I just wanted you to
Mhm.
choose me overall and in the end. And we're just seeing, just so many of the consequences of him, in a way, not being chosen, him having to give up his life for this business, and
Right.
for continuously for him to almost just be spit in the face, like time and time again. But at the same time, too, we have to also acknowledge that none of this had to happen this way.
It did.
He was in the spirit of cooperating, and wanted to, you know, take in a different light or take in a different perspective of how things could go. Like a lot of this could have been avoided. They wouldn't have had to split up, like you wouldn't be enemies with Tommy and now Diamond. Like so it's like almost sad, but at the same time, a lot of this could have for sure been avoided if, for
Yeah.
a moment you just took a second to, calm down and try to take in the different perspectives of what was going on, like around them.
That too, and I agree. And I feel like his character is so interesting because he seems so determined to like sell drugs, but he's not great at it. And then also, Diamond was trying to give him the opportunity to not have to do that. And I don't
Mhm.
know, it just seems like for so many years he's like, "No, I'm gonna sell drugs. I'm gonna sell drugs." And it's just like, okay, where do you even fit into that business? Like, you're not good at running your own enterprise. You weren't really like a great partner when you and your brother were trying to work together. That's kind of why
Mhm.
Tommy was able to swoop in and do that. And it's just kind of like, okay, I want to see. I don't know. I'm trying to pick up on Jenard as a character. Like, what does he thrive at? Because all we've done is see, like, I mean, all we've seen is him
Mhm.
like sabotaging things. Because he's mad that he's not like, it seems like he's mad that he's not thriving, but it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what are you good at? Where do you fit in?
That is exactly what he's good at, which is causing the chaos or, causing the friction for that to actually arise. So, so what do you think about Claudia's character, or what do you think about where she's going also too, or how did
Uh,
you feel about her during this episode?
she's so daggone trigger happy. Like, I like her fashions, don't get me wrong. Like, she be stepping out and it's like,
That
yes, girl,
part.
this is a look. But I don't like her as a character. It seems like she can't work with anybody.
Hmm.
Um, but I understand her frustrations, like being overlooked by her father,
Yeah.
just for being a woman and, just being sidelined, in
Yep.
that direction. And I feel like that's where a lot of her anger and inability to work with other people at this point is coming from. Because, Dahlia was her idea. She was the person who was like doing the numbers for the Flynn organization last season. And it seems like her father just wants to give everything to Victor, even though, he's just like a drunken, grieving mess. It's just like, you
Yeah.
don't want to give it to the person whose head is actually in the game. Like,
Mhm.
I understand why she's mad,
Yeah.
but I don't like that she killed Liliana. Like, that was my girl. That was my favorite character.
Yes, it
Um,
was. I do miss her.
yeah, definitely. Like, she brought so much to the show.
Hmm.
And I definitely think Claudia was just, I don't know. I think Tommy is going to get the drop on her. I really do. I don't see them, like, I don't, the way he just, like, he's the ultimate villain, okay? And it's like you root for him, and I feel like he's going to be able to like get her. I don't think she's going to get away.
Hmm. You bring up an interesting point too when you in regards to like her anger and her being overlooked, and how a lot of that is attributing to, like, in a way, her impulsive like actions. Like she doesn't have like the luxury or the privilege like her brother does to, be able to mess up, to be able to, be a drunken mess and still have his father kind of come and pick him up, grab him by the hand. Like she
Yeah,
has to, in a way, be independent and have to think of things on her own because she isn't getting that support from her partners. And even when she is in partnership, how friction still arises there. So she definitely has to overcome a lot of layers. But even too, like her anger, even in itself, is definitely leading her down a tumultuous road where she now has a lot of enemies, a lot of powerful enemies. And this isn't necessarily a position she has been in before
right.
or something that she's necessarily used to. And so this is definitely giving her a different side of the business. And now we'll see truly if she is able to kind of handle that, and if she is able to kind of handle all facets, because we obviously see she is very money savvy. Like, she is very financially stable and able to kind of take care of the business in those aspects. But when it comes to your enemies, or when it comes to having to deal with people, like, now we'll start to see like how good of her skills really are. Because uh, the show is definitely comparing her a lot to her father, and they are definitely similar in that regard. But at the same time, her father has those relationships that he has built, over the years, which I think Claudia could definitely have or use a little bit more help in knowing how to kind of form those relationships, and then knowing how to, you know, use them out in her favor, or to get the support and that partnership and that trust that she is needing from someone else to try to run an entire empire. Because all in all, like, she can't do it on her own, to your point.
Definitely not.
She will definitely need some sort of help or some sort of backing to actually be successful. So that was one of my favorite parts, to see her, or for next episode, to see her possibly team up with the Serbs to
Oh
then
yeah.
take, to try to gain control. I from the last recap we did, we predicted that it would have been cool to see her possibly team up with Dublin before then, but I am
Um,
wondering now what that will look like now that she is going to team up with the Serbs, and for them to be like her support system. So we'll definitely
yeah,
see,
because she definitely like needs more soldiers.
hmm for sure. And then now, since you bring up so many good points in terms of like themes and symbolism, something that I noticed kind of like ran rampant throughout the episode was that theme of like war and peace, and how and knowing like when to engage in that war, so when to engage in that conflict, like what we were just talking about, and then like when to resolve it, or when to have some resolution. So what would you say was your perspective throughout the episode in terms of like war and peace, and like what are some examples that you can give that could kind of explain that juxtaposition?
Okay, so for me, I know like War and Peace. Okay, I might be getting mixed up with episode 2 because I watched them back to back. But like when they were at at Lil Kay's grandma's house, and Jenard pulled the gun, that was definitely like a War and Peace type of moment. It
Mhm,
was like we can either talk and come to an agreement, or like I can kill you right here. Um,
mhm,
it was another War and Peace moment when Tommy and Claudia, they had their meetup, and like he had the gun to the throat, and like the other guys had the guns pulled on Tommy.
mhm.
There was another moment, I think the moment where Lil Kay and Jenard were in the car,
Yep.
and that ended up, being a War and Peace moment that was resolved into war.
Mhm,
And how that connected to the earlier moment from when they were at his grandma's house. I thought that was a good depiction of the consequences of war, because they ended up finding Lil Kay's body, and I feel like that makes the situation hotter for everybody now,
for sure.
with the setup of the task force. So, your point as to there being a time for war and a time for peace, it just looks like you have to be cohesive. Even in business as violent as that, it looks like that you still have to find some type of peace or some type of agreement, so that there's like, I don't know, I guess safety is probably the wrong word, but so
Mhm,
that it's for everyone's best interest, I guess, at the time. And it's like, if just the effect of little K shooting at Tommy and like murdering that little girl, it just was so many dominoes that fell because of that. And I
mhm.
definitely think, the theme of war and peace is huge, like in the past episode,
For
for that
sure.
reason.
Yeah, I love that you brought up how when Lil K got murdered, how that almost ignited the war, and how you said
Mhm.
like it, instead of it ending in peace, it ended in war. So kind of want to ask, do you
Ooh.
think it's possible for any of this to truly end in peace, or is it always, like you said, going to be a domino effect leading into something else that's going to ignite another war or another friction, another issue?
I think so far the whole theme has been War and Peace. Like even the foreshadowing in the first episode, CBI split. So I think that's probably going to be the overarching theme of the whole season. And no, I don't think it's going to be a peaceful resolution. I think it's going to end up being like one of those king of the hill type tropes where there's one person at the top and everybody is either, cowering or, trying to pick up the pieces of what they've lost in the war, or they're going to be like new alliances, or they're just going to be dead and there's going to be some new players popping up. But no, I definitely don't think it's going to be peace.
Gotcha. Wow, that's a really awesome point, especially too, because how I think about it in that regard, like peace is only like momentary, like in
Yeah.
this world or in this environment. So it makes me think of even the grandma, like when they went to when the police officer went to initially go and speak to her, and she's out in her garden, and she's trying to, in a way, like that was kind of symbolizing like me trying to find peace, like in the
Yeah.
midst of
Oh my
being
gosh.
in the middle of this war now. Like, just because, this is my grandson, like I have now kind of entered into this playing field, but at the same time, still trying to find those moments of peace, or still trying to find those moments of joy, even in the midst of chaos. So, in the context of peace, it's almost like momentary, and like things that you have to kind of grab onto and hold on to as for as long as you can, because once again, like one of those domino pieces could be coming right back up, and once again putting you back into like conflict, or putting you back right back into tension. And so that
Mhm.
really definitely stood out when I saw that scene. Like,
That's such
she's
a good
just,
point.
yeah, it's a beautiful afternoon. She's just trying to enjoy her time in her space.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, another domino piece. Hey, I'm looking for such and such. Do you know where? And then, even her having to lie for her, it's like
Yeah.
now enabling, more war, or now enabling. So even speaking to your point earlier, and how she, you know, is a part of this, like even indirectly or directly, like so many people are affected by this, even if they don't want to be involved, even if they aren't necessarily directly doing the different activities that they are. It's everyone, even around you, even your inner circle, like will be affected somehow in some way. And you know, instead of just living in complete
Yeah.
despair 24/7, it's like having to then find those moments of peace, or just find those times where, there can be some sort of resolution.
And then I also think the fact that she was gardening, like outside, outdoors, that could be like a very good metaphor for how discord always exists in nature, like whether we want it to or not, like that's something we can't really control. And then I also thought it was like a cool parallel about like the way people's environments affect them, because she
Mm,
was in control of that environment, but she's not in control of the like environment that exists around her.
wow. Yes, that you just hit the nail on the head. And once again, like, yes, trying to find that balance,
Yeah.
of either just kind of completely succumbing to your environment and just being completely immersed in that, or once again trying to find those pockets of peace, and those moments of control, or those moments where, I can hold on to this and like and keep it close, whereas everything around me, though, I may not be able to hold on to as tight. So,
Right.
and just how much fear, in a way, has to go into that, which uh is a good segue into like the character analysis, because I do want to hear like what your thought process is in terms of our characters in the context of fear, because I feel as though fear was running rampant as well, and it either makes you want to hide, um, and kind of seclude yourself, like in a way
Mhm.
how I viewed Tommy's mom in this episode, like where in a way she had to kind of come out of being hidden from, her being a mother, and how that affected her kids. Like, she, once again, she was like, I can't use drugs or to numb what is truly going on. But I used that in a way beforehand because I was too afraid to really admit to what was really going on. And then on the
Mhm.
other hand, it could once again make you want to grasp control. Kind of speaking to our point earlier, like I need to find some sort of control within the uncontrollables. Like I want to feel some sort of power. And again, you can even speak to like safety, what you were talking to earlier. So, what do you think in terms of the characters in the context of fear, and how did that, or how did you think about that?
Okay. Wow, that's a good question. Okay. So I think as it relates to Tommy's mom, it was really interesting to see her conquer her fear of like being vulnerable while she's sober and like trying to get right with her sons.
Mhm.
I thought like the ice cream scene towards the end was like that was a little aw, that's nice. Like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
she's trying. She's really trying to like get it together
Because if
because
you
she's been
remember
crushed
just
so bad.
original, yeah, just the original Power, you just would never think Kate would
Never.
ever, ever,
Not
ever
half
get to
that.
this point.
And it's just like, okay, that kind of makes you want to like root for her more.
Yes, it does. When
Mhm.
beforehand you were just like, okay, like just, oh
Uh-huh.
gosh. What are you gonna do next?
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, and then Tommy, I feel like his fear, like even though he has nothing to lose, I feel like he still don't want to die. Like he's not trying to get shot or anything. The stakes are getting higher. I feel like he's trying to, in flight mode, as it relates to flight, fight or flight, and fear, is definitely like fight for him. Cause I
Mm,
thought what he did with the Serbs was so like that was just so extreme and like out of the blue. Like, what do you mean you set them up for what reason?
mm.
Julio, I mean, I don't think that's the guy's name. What's the guy's name? That was the guy
Miguel.
from the Miguel, yeah. Miguel already had beef with them. So you I don't know, you just leaned in hard to a beef that wasn't yours. That's crazy. That's insane. So I feel like Tommy is just like fear is making him just act crazy.
Mm,
Um I think for Jenard, he's getting like kind of backed into a corner and I don't know, he's not taking time to like pause and think. It's making him angrier and angrier and angrier. And then the CBI soldiers, it's interesting to watch their interactions because even Ashanti, you can tell she's worried about Jenard and is like trying
mm.
to help him, but
Yeah.
also, trying not to like bruise his ego or whatever. And it's just like, okay, girl, are you sure you want to like do that? You should be trying to like get away from him, not lean in. But I
Mhm.
guess like, they know each other, so she's scared for him and she's trying to do what she can do. Um, I don't know. I think throughout both organizations, the soldiers, I think their fear was projected when they were at the rally for that little girl because they were just like, okay, what are we gonna do now? Like, how are we gonna move forward with all these eyes on us? And
Mhm.
then just in general, they're scaring the community. So I feel like it's a cycle of fear. The drug dealers are scared to get caught. The community is like scared to get caught in the crossfire. And it's just
Yeah.
like, I don't know, it's like a catch 22.
Hmm. That you bring up an interesting point there, in terms of it being a catch-22, because it's like, where are you gonna let your fear kind of lead you? So
Yeah.
you were speaking to like it could lead you to being angry and making you act rationally or irrationally for that matter, or like in Kate's position, it can make you want to hide and make you want to seclude and try to cover up layers, or it can even make you want to once again kind of gain control, like you were talking about with Tommy. And I even see it like with Miguel in that scene
Oh,
where
yeah.
he froze or I think it's liquid nitrogen, like put their hands
Yeah.
in there and
Mhm.
then just broke them off as if it was just like a piece of glass. And so,
Girl, I fast forwarded through that scene. I could not handle it.
yeah, I was like, okay, I don't know how. Well, Tommy is, this is his craft. So he's, that was not something that he was unfamiliar with seeing, and possibly even Diamond either.
Not his craft.
It's just more so like, however, someone was feeling it led them into a direction, and we're seeing now, like, is this actually going to lead to positive results? Like, are you leading to progression, or are you allowing your fear to kind of stifle you and kind of keep you stagnant? Because that's also been like a continuous theme that we talked about in previous recaps too. It's like, how are you progressing, and are you giving yourself like the skills and things that you need to adopt what will be necessary for you to progress, and to keep going. And so I do see, in a way, like Tommy using his fear of death, or even, well, who even knows truly if
Right.
Tommy fears that, but just his fear of losing his control and losing his power and losing his influence, makes him have to do those kind of rash decisions, or having to avenge, Liliana's death, having to, do all of these things where, to him, it's like this is absolutely necessary. Whereas to
Right.
you, to like someone like Diamond, it's like, no, this is going to cause more X, Y, and Z, and this is going to cause
Yeah.
more friction. And, but at the same time, it's like that fear of just losing that bit of control for Tommy is enough for him to do some of those kind of like more rash, and irrational or impulsive decisions. So,
You're right. Because even with Diamond, I feel like I didn't talk about him the first time, but like him and his I don't know, his situation with his parole officer,
yeah,
I thought it was like super tense when the guy came out of the basement with the bag while the parole officer was like getting a haircut and
yeah,
everyone was trying to act like, oh yeah, we're just a barber shop. Do. There's no drugs here. Like,
it did. The guy with the I'm not sure if that's his like uncle or whoever. When he came up with the glasses, he was just like, "Oh, wrong timing. You should not have woken up just now. But let me try to,
right, let me try and not make this hot.
yeah, let me try to resolve this quickly."
Mhm.
But I don't think the parole officer went for that. I'm sure he's
I
well aware of what's truly going on. So I
think
am
he did.
interested, um,
I
in
also think
seeing
the
like where that
reason
goes.
that I think that's why Diamond was trying to talk to the little boy who was speaking at the rally, because then that'll make him look more like, a legitimate, oh, I am a barber. I'm a community figure. I'm like mentoring these children and like teaching them how to box and giving out free haircuts. And so I feel like he's going to link up with him to do like more community involvement type activities to give him more cover.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, do you think that him being more involved with that young boy could possibly change, his perspective or his outlook of like what he wants to do in the future? Like, would this be his catalyst moment to, oh, maybe I don't want to sell drugs anymore. Like maybe I don't want to do some of these things. Like, do you think that this was a big enough catalyst, or are you still leaning more towards like this is going to look good for his image, so that way it can kind of get a little bit less eyes on them?
I feel like he is in too deep.
Mm,
You trying to get the kid to cover for you. You got the girl selling drugs in prison for you. You trying to get your old enemy a lawyer so you could sell drugs in prison better. Like, I don't think that's gonna get him out. If anything, I feel like it's gonna put like the little boy in danger, or like give
mm,
him more or make the child want to like, oh, okay, let me get into this. I mean, I could box, I could sell drugs, I could do it all. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm just
even,
interested to see like
yeah, because
where the
even
plot goes
speaking
with that.
to, because even speaking to fear for that little boy, where he's seeing like when he's speaking out in terms of gun violence, or when he's speaking out in terms of things that are going on within his community, that now makes him a target, or that
Right.
now makes, that antagonizes people to want to, instigate or create again friction and tension for him. And so
Mhm.
it will be interesting to see like how that evolves, and like where his fear in that, like fear of getting hurt, fear of being bullied, fear of getting ridiculed for the things that he, wants to stand up for, and how that'll evolve and what direction that'll take him into. Like, will it make him angry that he keeps getting beat up, or will it make him want to, grasp onto some sort of control, or whatever the case may be, like what avenue will this take him down? So it is interesting, and I am curious to see like how that will evolve, because prayerfully it won't turn out to be a negative situation, but just how the
It's
show is
Howard, you know
going,
it's gonna be
yeah.
negative.
It's almost like, ooh, where, even for us, like as fans watching it, like where are we gonna find our moments of peace, like even
Yeah,
in this show? And that was like a glimmer of hope, like, oh, he could take him under his wing. But like you said, how Diamond is just kind of too deep into this, and how just people like the grandma, like when you're just in close
yeah.
proximity, just what happens, and
Oh,
like
but I
what.
guess, like, that plays back into what you mentioned about war and peace, so maybe the child, like, will signify, the inner turmoil within Diamond of, like, the drug game and, like, wanting to be better and, like, I guess we'll see more of that back and forth in terms of, like, symbolism.
Wow, yes, because I didn't even think about it being internal, and
Yeah,
how they're going through just their day-to-day lives, and just being involved with this overall. Like, what does that feel like internally? And,
yeah.
are you at constant war with yourself once again trying to find those moments of peace? Or, you know, how do you find that balance? Like, where does that balance lie? Or is it just a perpetual state of war, and there's just glimmers of hope here and there, but they don't last. um so yeah, that will be interesting to see too, because this could for sure be like holding up a mirror moment, like this is what I could have been, or this is what you know I would have rather wanted to do. But just
Yeah.
again, being immersed into my environment and not necessarily having those opportunities, or just it being in such close proximity to me all the time, like, did I really have a choice, or did I really have an option, or you know am I now just responsible for finding the peace within this, because I know overall this is how my life has to go, or this is how the trajectory of my life is going. So
Yeah, that's a good point, that's a good point. I also think, like, that comes into, like, okay, so I saw that parallel between Tommy and JP trying to like get right with their mom, and then
mm,
like JP trying to get right with his son at the same time. And I feel like it was just cool to watch that play out. Also like really worried for DMAC though, because like I saw him take the gun, and it's just like, okay, can you just like be a high school student? They told you you don't have to be in the streets. Like you already got shot. Are you sure you really want to be out there like that?
dun dun dun. Who does that sound like? Sounds just like
Right.
Tariq, right?
Yes.
And
Oh
how
my
we
God, yes.
can see those parallels throughout the different shows too, because once again, like when they're trying to like shield you and trying to take you out, and once again trying to even give you that moment of peace, or so
Mhm.
that like you're not overcome by the war and the chaos that comes with this. At the same time, like from his perspective, it's like, I'm already here, like I'm already in this, I don't have a choice now. So it's like, once again, now I have to find those moments, like of even feeling safe. It could be attributed to peace, or just even feeling some sort of control, once again, can feel like peace. And so those are the things that he has to now kind of once again hold on to, and kind of keep close. But just at the same time, just like the young boy who's been speaking out in terms of gun violence and things going on in the community, they just have so much potential to utilize their skills elsewhere. It's just when there aren't any opportunities for them to kind of exercise them in a different capacity, it's now having to be used and utilized here. And so
Yeah.
that is
Hate to see it.
another kind of
Hate to
sucky
see
part
it.
as well. We said, sorry, can you say that one more time? I think I didn't
Oh,
hear.
I said I hate to see it.
Oh, yes, I do too. So, but kind of even going back to that first episode where he was introducing them to the app, or how they were like, it was almost similar to like TikTok, and how they were able to kind of communicate
Um,
with one another, like,
yeah.
hey, this is being sold here on this street by, such and such. And how
Okay,
he
not to interrupt you, but that cracked me up. That absolutely sent me. Like, I know the kids aren't selling crack with little TikTok. That's crazy.
that is crazy. But how he just represents like the new generation,
Mhm.
and how his skills and like what he's learning in his generation will ultimately help, specifically in the context of this business, and how we'll see the progression there. So it's like he's very useful, and like he needed in a way for this business to continue going. It's just, all in all, like, that his skill set still could have been utilized in a much different
No,
capacity as
it
well.
could. Like, I see it. He could definitely be CBI's social media manager.
If they ever needed one, he is definitely
He's
the
got
one
it.
for the job. Ooh, so what is your predictions, based on all of what happened from this episode and the previous two, for what will either go on in episode 4, or even for the rest of the season?
Ooh, so okay. Remember that episode? Remember in New York, like on the earlier episodes of Power where Tommy was like an emotional cokehead? I feel like we're gonna see like that kind of characterization from Jenard. Um,
Mm.
Either that or he's like really gonna sabotage the business being on heroin. And
Ooh,
because I mean he lost his car already. He
yes.
like killed Lil K and took his car and was like going to, I don't know what's gonna happen with that. I don't know. I feel like we're just gonna see him in his crackhead era, unfortunately. But as for Tommy and Diamond, I feel like Miguel is gonna catch them. Even though like what they did with the Serbs was very slick with how they changed the clothes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't tell if Miguel knows or if he was acting like that because he's feeling the pressure from his mom and her partner. So
Mm.
I'm kind of like I'm really interested to see how that plays out. Right now, I don't think he knows. Um, in terms of getting proof for who killed Liliana, I think Victor is gonna tell Tommy that Claudia did it because the two of them they like button heads right now, and Victor
Mhm.
seems like he's trying to blow the Flint organization up from like inside. Um, I definitely think the Flint organization is going to implode because it seems like there's less people around them. They don't have like good vibes with Dublin right now. And who's the guy? The dad is he's like alienated both of his children. So
Sure. Mm-hmm.
like, he doesn't really have anybody to run to. And then his trusted advisor, he's just like his security guard, He's not really in the field like that.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Am I forgetting to mention anybody? Like,
And his advisor is like practically done with him, because he's like,
yeah,
I can't stand you. You don't listen. Like,
yeah.
everything is gonna fall out of whack if you don't start, taking heed to what is being presented to you. Like, we need to
Hmm.
do something. Like, you cannot rely on your pride right now, because your pride will be our downfall. And we see episode after episode after episode that Walter's like, I'm going to die on this hill. Like, I cannot, in a way, I cannot adopt. I cannot adapt. Like, I cannot
Yeah.
do, I cannot do what I am not used to. Like, I cannot do what is not already in place. And so I just think that is a really good prediction in terms of, Victor going to Tommy and, spilling the beans on his sister. It's almost
Mhm.
like, how far is Victor willing to go? Because we saw in this episode, he's a bit more cleaned up. Like, he was a bit more, had his head a bit more on straight, because he's
Yeah.
um allowing his plan to, take down Walter, um, putting the pieces in motion, we saw in this episode. But it's like, how far will that extend to your sister, like, and how far is your event, how far are you willing to go to avenge, Gloria, his girlfriend, who died. So that would be interesting, though, to see, like, if, he's that desperate for revenge on his entire family, or just, I know specifically Walter, but if that will then further extend to Claudia,
Okay.
as well.
So I totally, totally agree with you on that point about like Victor coming out of his show with his plan. And I definitely like I agree with you because on the last episode, that was when he like sabotaged the deal with the pharmaceutical company, right?
No, that was this
That,
one. That
that
was
was
this
this
one.
episode.
Yeah,
Okay.
where he called the police,
Yeah, yeah,
and he
yeah,
got,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so seeing him do that, I feel like he might also tip off the feds or something like that, or bring attention to his father. You know what I mean? Because I feel
Hmm.
like the season could go like how they have the task force against CBI right now.
Yeah.
They could end that if Victor tips somebody off to his dad's dealings with like the pharmaceutical guys, because I feel like that would be a bigger fish than CBI or like more money,
Mm.
because it would be like the street drug game and it would be like the pharmaceutical game too. So I'm interested to see like how that plot point plays out, and I really like all the points you brought about because Victor is definitely like the center of that.
Yes. Ooh, it brings up a point too, like, vying for power, who's really going to
Mm,
end up on top. And so I definitely see now Victor almost putting himself like in the game, like in position to now kind of elevate himself. So it will
yeah.
be interesting to see, like, almost beyond him avenging Gloria with his father, like, now what? Like, after you take down
Yeah.
Walter, it's almost like, well, then what? What will you do? Will you be satisfied? Probably not. And so I think now he's just putting things in place to really, one, do his initial goal, which is to take down his father, but then two, to really, put himself on top, or to put himself in that position of power where, he's not necessarily having to rely on such a figure like his dad, like, where he is actually able to stand on his own. So characteristics that we already kind of see in Claudia, like, we're now almost starting to see also in Victor as well. Just that
Yeah.
the capacity and the capabilities to actually really run the entire business, and seeing how that goes. It just makes me wonder too, like, in terms of like crossovers with other shows, like, if DMAC would ever, be in conjunction with Tariq,
Oh
and
yeah, that'd be interesting.
yeah, just because how savvy they are in terms of like the apps, and being able to utilize social media, or just being able to utilize phones and different things or aspects that they like the older generation or people weren't necessarily utilizing or using, and seeing like if they would ever join forces.
Yeah, I mean the way
No pun intended.
Ghost ended, I definitely think that's a possibility.
Yeah, to see that crossover. And then like, it was even interesting to see, like, at the end scene, like when DMAC was or not the end scene, but like when Tommy and his father didn't want to give him a gun, and how he was just saying like, Uncle Tommy, Uncle Tommy. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is literally Tariq once
Literally.
again, like, in another show. And almost like the same cycle, like, like Tommy and Ghost from the previous show, and even in Power Book 2 currently right now, did everything in their power to keep Tariq and his siblings safe. But once they're almost in it, it's like there's no stopping them. So it's almost like I see the same sort of trajectory with DMAC. And so it'll just be interesting if they ever meet, because it's like they are. I
I think they're like
No,
around the
DMAC
same
is a
age.
little younger
Yeah.
because Tariq is in college, but just because they just have a similar skill set, and how that could be utilized possibly later on.
Okay, did it freeze for you? Because it just froze for me.
A little, but you're back now.
Okay, good. Yeah, I see you too.
So yeah, I am excited to see, how this continues to play out. Uh Once again, Tommy is not going to stop either with Liliana's death, and so yeah, I will be. It's almost like I'm interested to see what his plan is, because, like you said, like he could have dropped her right then and there. Because again, I don't think he's that afraid that her two bodyguards were there, because, and also too, Walter did threaten. That could also be, if she doesn't, in a way, fall in line and and stop trying to mess up his plans. Like, he's gonna try to pull the rug from under her, and so that's almost like her last bit of peace, her
Yeah,
safety. And when that gets disrupted, it's like, now what? Now, in a way, she's going to the enemy and going to the Serbs and seeing if that will offer her some peace. And so now we'll see how even that continues to unravel, because now the Serbs are uh also have an issue with Miguel, because
yep,
he thinks that they were who was responsible for taking all his products. So there are a lot of moving pieces where it's just going to be so cool to see the strategy, how it all plays out. And then, yes, for Jenard,
definitely.
I just truly hope he does get it together, and that Diamond can just, say something to him to kind of just get him back on track. Um, or like how we predicted, even from the last recap, like if they would like almost team up against Tommy, and just because again they are brothers and they already have that established intimacy, and how once again still Tommy is a newcomer, and how that will play out. So
Okay, can you hear me and
okay,
see me and
yeah.
everything?
Yes, you're back.
Okay. Okay, you said you want them to team up because they're brothers, and you're right. If they did that, like that could be a threat for Tommy.
Hmm.
But the way, like, I don't know, I don't see that happening. I feel like Jenard is just like drugged up and power hungry. I don't think it's gonna happen. Like,
Well, now that he doesn't have literally anything, and on top of that, like his own crew will now in a way despise him because he did take out little K. It's like, in a way, he doesn't have any other choice but to fall in line somewhere, or
yeah.
he's just going to completely, self destruct, which is
Ooh.
also.
Or it could be like they do maybe Victor like teaming up with his father to sabotage his organization is gonna be like maybe Jenard will I don't
Mm,
know, join Diamond's organization again to sabotage. Well, I don't know, I kind of feel like they did that last season though. But it could be a
oh,
possibility.
trying, yeah, trying to get within to then like
Yeah.
try to dismantle it from there. Hmm. I just, for Jenard specifically, like he's too like impulsive to almost
Mhm.
want to be that calculated. Like he wants things done right now this way,
True.
and so it's almost like he would need a lot more patience than I think he's ever exhibited to truly kind of have that plan even go underway. So something in a way just has to happen quick for him, or it's just not it's not gonna end well for Jenard, and which is still sad, because it's like I do want to see him get his act together, so him and Diamond and Tommy could be almost like a united front. But
Right.
it truly depends on Jenard. Like I think now the ball is in his field. Like he had, like, it's his move now. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna just kind of lay down and take now whatever kind of comes because you don't really have much to go off of, or are you gonna still fight? Are you, are we still gonna see a little bit more fight left in you? So that will be interesting as well to see.
Definitely.
Oh, well, yay. That is a wrap for today's episode, Hot Nerd Family. So I hope you all enjoyed our deep dive into Power Book 4, Season 2, Episode 3. Thank you again, Hot Nerd Viv, for joining us
Oh, you're
today and
welcome.
sharing your insights.
Thanks for
Please come
having
back
me.
in the future episodes if you want to hop back on for this conversation, because yes, I am excited to see if some of our theories or predictions did come about. So, yes, thank
Yeah,
you
for
again
sure.
for coming and joining us. And then, yes, for you all, remember to comment, like, and subscribe so you can join the conversation, and stay tuned for next week's recap for episode 4.